Hey, welcome to Text Me When You Outside, a podcast celebrating the past and present leaders of nightlife, live entertainment, and hospitality. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon McEachern, followed by my co-host,
Marcus Allen.
Let's get it going. What up? We are back again for another episode of Text Me When You Outside. I am one of your hosts, Brandon McEachern, and we have a very, very special episode today. Usually on this podcast, we talk about the people who are in front, I guess, of the events, right? So it's the promoter or it's a booker or, someone who's kind of frontward facing, right? In terms of like the creative, I guess, right? That make these events, that ideate these events. So today is special because we're actually talking to some folks that actually make these events happen. Because there's one thing that we all need when we are doing these events, which is money. You know what I mean? So I am so happy to present my sisters in this game, Shavonne Dargan and Soukee Van Orden from CURATED. So thank you guys. Go ahead and clap.
Happy to be here.
Appreciate you guys taking the time to rap with me. You guys are based in New York, correct? Mm-hmm. Nice. And is CURATED a part of the whole Live Nation kind of body? Is that how this works? Like you guys are within the Live Nation system?
Yeah. So we work on the media and sponsorship team, which is a division of Live Nation. It's a global division, but we're a little niche agency, if you will, that sits within the sponsorship team. And our focus, as you know, is primarily to support our Black culture properties, Rocky City, of course, included.
Got it. Thank you guys so much. And I know that, and we'll get into this later on, but, often a question I get all the time is, how do you get brands? How do you get sponsors? So maybe by the end of this episode, we'll be able to share some insight on that. But we're going to take it back. We're going to take it all the way back. And I guess I'll start with you, Shavonne. When we talk about education, right? And talk about schooling, whatever the case may be. I mean, where did you go to school? Where are you from? You know what I mean? Just to give people kind of a background on Mrs. Shavonne Dargan.
I was literally just talking to Soukee about this and saying, who cares? Because I'm 31 years removed from college. Wow. Does it even matter anymore? But I'm a Syracuse University graduate, bleed orange till death. And I studied marketing in college. So I'm lucky to be working in my field of study. But yeah, I'm 30 years. I don't even remember college, honestly. Ask Soukee this question. She just got out.
I respect it. And Soukee, where did you go to school though? Being that Shavonne did put you on the spot, which makes sense.
You're right. I'm actually 9 years removed from undergrad, so it's still some time. Right. But I got my master's in 2018 at Syracuse, which is how Shavonne and I met, and I studied public relations. So a little bit different than marketing, but still kind of arm in arm with the same goal.
Fire. Now that's something that I did not know. I did not know that you guys met at Syracuse. How did that happen? Was it like a alma mater program, alumni program? How did you?
You want to tell it, Soukee?
Yeah, I'll tell it. So there is a program at Syracuse called the Bandier Program. It's specifically for students interested in music-related careers. I was lucky enough to meet Bill Wordy, who led that program, continues to lead the program today. I actually went to him and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be in music. My actual kind of PR trajectory wasn't exactly what I envisioned for myself. And he was like, come in, be my TA for this program, which was actually a speaker series. So one semester, I was the teaching assistant for Bill Wordy. And Shavonne was actually one of the people that came in to speak. She was one of the only, I actually believe, the only woman of color who showed up that semester. Yeah. So I knew I was coming there for a goal, not only to be a teaching assistant and to, help Bill and the students, but I was also there for networking opportunities. So I kept seeing a lot of the speakers come through. I was like, okay, these people are great, but like, who looks like me, And then one day Shavonne walked in and I was like, got it. So Shavonne and I actually didn't meet that evening. I had to leave early, but as I was leaving, I turned around and looked right at her and she was looking dead at me. And I was like, got it. And she was like, and so I emailed her and like the rest was history. We just stayed in touch. I shared interesting articles back and forth. We had a few calls. And then I believe I was like about to graduate mid-panic and right on time she emailed me and was like, hey, do you want a job? I was like, yeah, I want a job.
Wow.
So but I moved to New York and I've been at Live Nation ever since.
Wow. But let me add, it wasn't just about her, that like connection, that you feel. She networked well. She approached me in a way that was additive to what I was doing with my time. She did not approach me and reach out asking for something or needing something or wanting a reference to something. She reached out and offered something, right? She was like, hey, you talked about this when you came to our class. Here's an article that I recently read that I think is relevant. When you have 15 minutes, I would love to connect and talk about it. It was that type of thing. And she did that on a consistent basis, not consistent enough to be a pain in my behind, but consistent enough where I was more and more curious about what she had to offer. And so like every time I'm like, I don't even, wow, it was 9 years. It's bananas to me that it was that long ago. But wait, that was undergrad. She went to grad school. So anyway, she networked well. And that's why, I don't want people to be like, oh, Shavonne just gonna hire anybody who reaches out, because that is not the case. Yeah. You must, she came correct. Yeah. So, yeah.
But I must give you kudos too, though, because some of us, when we get to certain places in our career, I guess we feel like we don't need to listen to anybody. So kudos to you for understanding that you need to listen to the youth, you know what I mean? And what they have to offer. So that's super duper dope. Oh, and another announcement to all our Text Me When You Outside listeners. My partner, co-host Marcus Allen has joined us. So I'm happy to have him.
Apologies. I was cleaning snow off a car. My bad.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, going into, obviously both of you guys' trajectory, right? PR for Soukee and then Shavonne with marketing. When you got out of school, like, what was those next steps? Obviously, it's like, I got to find a job. And we'll start with you, Shavonne. Boom, I got to find a job. Like, I'm in Syracuse. Like, did it go from Syracuse and then you moved back to NYC proper, or you had to go home and like sit for a minute? You know what I mean? Like, how did that
I think that part of the journey hasn't changed for many people. I did have to go home and sit for a minute. I was an athlete and I went to college on an athletic scholarship. And so I was a triple jumper.
What? Yeah. First of all, let me say this right quick to my Text Me When You Outside folks. We known Shavonne for fucking ever. Like, and I never knew this ever. You know what I mean? But continue. I'm so sorry.
I was on an athletic scholarship. So along with my academic responsibilities were my athletic responsibilities, and it took up a lot of time. And so part of I did not have the opportunity to travel abroad or do internships because I had to, I was committed to athletics. So I walked with my class, but I didn't actually graduate until the December after formal graduation. So I went home, which was Northern Virginia at the time, and I got a job at Tiffany and Company, and that was my internship. But it was like a whole paid gig. So I feel like it was good for me in the sense that I got a job. It was a paid gig. It was off season, so it wasn't all the college students that just graduated were now looking for a new gig. Like I still had time. Yeah, I started working at Tiffany and Company. Again, it was such a long time ago. Like me
And
talking. Go ahead.
and was the love for marketing, did this happen like in college? You know what I mean? Because obviously you had to pick your, you had to do that. What we got to do a junior, whenever when you pick your major, like your sophomore year, whatever the case may be. So that means you were already interested in marketing before you got to college, I assume.
No, it was pressure that made me pick a major.
Do something basically.
Right? Because I was like, I'm moving around. I'm taking all these classes that I thought I wanted to work in fashion. I thought I wanted to be a buyer.
That
Right? I thought I wanted to travel the world and find all these beautiful textiles and then open a little boutique in Paris and live a very quiet, simple life. Didn't work out that way for me, and I'm glad. But I picked a major because I had to. I was just taking a bunch of classes, and it was like, sis, you trying to graduate, or you just gonna stay here? Like, what are you doing? So I was like, marketing. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't advise it. But it ended up being the right path for me. So maybe it was, the universe. It was meant to be.
And I'm just curious on what skill sets you feel like set you up for that. Or once you got into marketing, was it things that you already did well? And you was like, oh, snap, like I already can talk to people well. I'm already fly. I'm already can tell somebody to, drink water from a well, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. You don't have to be fly to be a marketer. I know many unfly marketers, so that's not a prerequisite, hopefully, for a lot of folks. However, it helps. But I have the gift of persuasion. I am a natural leader. I have been since I was a child, as my mom. My brain works in a very rational and somewhat linear way, which I think has been helpful to me in my career. But I'm also creative, so there's that duality. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know because, like I said, it was pressure that made me pick my major, but it all worked out.
Got it.
When you're at Tiffany & Co., is this a business job or is this retail?
Business.
Okay, got you.
So Tiffany has this, they used to anyway, back, have this service award program. So how you're at a job for like 5 years and then they give you a pen. And then if you're there for 10 years, you get a watch. And if you're there 20 years, you might get, I don't know what you get. So I worked in that department at Tiffany and Company. So we were business to business, selling and coming up with proposals for businesses for their employee service award programs. Everything from stationery to diamond watches.
Got you. That's very interesting. I did not know that was a thing. And then I was going to
Most people don't.
And then I was going to ask, like, when you're at Tiffany, are you thinking like more school? Are you thinking next job? Like, where was your mind in terms of, or were you just like, I'm day to day, I'm at Tiffany, let me just do what I'm doing? Are you thinking next steps? At what point do you start 100%. Thinking about next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, what do I want to do with my life from a work perspective? And I knew that wasn't it, but I was meeting a lot of people. I was learning a lot. I was being exposed to areas of business I had no idea existed. But I also knew that that's not what I wanted. At the same time, I didn't know what I actually wanted to do. So, it was just a lot of trial and error. I stayed at that job for a couple of years. again, I still thought I wanted to be a buyer. So then I went to Saks Fifth Avenue because, clothes. And I hated it. And then I just started doing some research and figuring out, like, what am I good at? What do I want to work in? I love sports. Can I work in sports? What opportunities exist? Again, this was 30 years ago. So, like, resources that are available now did not exist back then.
No Indeed, no Google, like you just had to grind.
There was no computer. Like, if I had there was no laptop to just whip out and open up and do like you said, a Google search. The internet was new. So
I ain't even gonna bullshit you, because obviously we ain't that much younger than you, but like the thought of that sounds overwhelming.
Sound bananas?
It's almost like how, like, if I'm at the job, I'm happy I got the job. The thought of, like, what is the next step? Like, how do I even, I hate to sound crazy, but how do you even know where were the jobs at actually? Hold on, like, this is like, where do you find out that so-and-so was hiring at this time though? Like, it's not even that far along. Like, it's not that long ago, but it does sound.
This was I used a phone book. So I decided, I was like, what the hell do I want to do?
So you just called them?
Listen, I didn't even know what kind of jobs existed. Do you know that there's programs now that did not exist currently at our alma mater, Syracuse, that are focused on sports industry, music industry? Like, they didn't have that when I was at Syracuse.
So you just graduated and they were just like, do your thing.
Deuces, but no student loans. But so I was in the phone book and I was like, yo, I want to work in sports. I like sports. So I found a headhunter. Back then, that's how you used job search firms. And it wasn't Indeed. It was all like, these people were like, oh, let me look in my Rolodex.
Craft.
Right. So I did that. And I found a person. I was like, I don't want to do, I was making good money at Saks. I was the manager of the designer salon. I was managing 6 people who were my grandmother's age, but I didn't want to do that. So I found a headhunter. I was like, this is what I think I want to do. I want to work in sports. I don't even know what jobs exist. Here's what my skill set is. And she found me a gig, and it was an administrative assistant gig, and I took a pay cut, but that set me on the trajectory to bring me where I am today in my career. So, yeah.
Fire. So we just gonna shift the attention real quick over here to Soukee, like PR, you know what I mean? Public relations. Was this something that you already like had a thing for as a young lady? Like, oh, I'm gonna be in PR. I don't know. I always think devil wears Prada, even though that's fashion, but I always just think PR and entertainment and celebrities, like that was your thing, like before you got to school or in school?
No, it was something I fell into, actually. I graduated from a New York State school. I studied psychology and sociology as a double major, and I thought I wanted to work in law. So I did for a year and a half, and it was great for building blocks. Wouldn't recommend it for anybody, just because I worked in foreclosure law. So I actually watched people's homes be taken away. So didn't love that, but it taught me a lot about managing tasks quickly, quite literally handling fires, like off the rip. And then I ended up moving back down to Texas for a couple months, because that's actually where my biological family is from. So I went to go meet them. I worked at Ulta Beauty for a month, and in Texas they had, working retail was $7.25 an hour. So I quickly learned that that's also not what I wanted to do. So one night I was like, I'm going to go back to school. And I found the program. I actually went to the Newhouse School at Syracuse. So it's pretty well known, like globally. And I saw that they had a PR track. And I knew that entertainment was, specifically music, was where I wanted to sit. I actually had this dream of being like a music PR manager, which really glad I didn't go down that track either, just because doesn't really align with who I am. But that was the dream at the time. I applied, and then I think on Father's Day, I got a call from the head of the program. They were like, we'd love to have you come back. So I started like the next month Did 18 months there through the summer, and then came to Live Nation. And that's been my journey.
Wow,
Hmm.
interesting. So, were you like a lover of music? And my bad, Mark. It looked like you were about to ask
No, no,
something.
no. Go
Like,
ahead. Go ahead.
were you a lover of music coming up? Like, I hear music a lot.
Yeah, obsessed.
Yeah.
Grew up listening to all types of music. At
Speak
the
to that
time when I
though.
was,
Who was you listening to?
oh
Like
my
what year is this?
gosh,
Who you listening to? What's the vibes? Set
oh
the
my gosh,
stage.
this is actually really funny. Someone's gonna laugh. I was a big Motown fan, like real old school, like 60s and 70s. I still kind of am. That's really where I sit. I mean, I was just bumping Marcus Gaye, like walking into the office. Um, I think that came from a lot of like older movies. So I was raised by an older woman, who I was actually adopted by. So the movies that she had in her space were a lot older. So that's really the music that kind of grabbed me and held on to me.
That's dope. Shavonne, like at what point do you get the Live Nation? And then how far after you get into Live Nation do you connect and start thinking about curated, like give the Live Nation path,
I
right?
mean, because you work for the Memphis Grizzlies, like you've done a lot of. Okay, and Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. So the when I first started outside of retail, I would say the start of my career, I was an administrative assistant for a sports marketing firm called SFX Sports Group. SFX, I was the administrative assistant to the man who is now my boss, who's the global president of media and sponsorship
They
for
bought
Live.
didn't Live Nation buy them at some point?
So
Okay,
SFX
okay.
Sports Group became what was bought by Clear Channel Entertainment. Clear Channel Entertainment then became Live Nation. So like the businesses were kind of intermingled, even though we were working in a sports capacity at the time. But then it kind of evolved into what is now Live Nation. But so I was at SFX Sports Group. There was all of these mergers happening. I left to go to the Memphis Grizzlies. Then left Memphis without a job. I don't recommend
What
it.
era of Memphis Grizzlies is this? Like who's playing?
We relocated the team from Vancouver to Memphis. So
Got you.
it
So
was the
y'all actually had dope jerseys at that time, but y'all were pretty trash. Yeah, y'all were pretty trash at that time.
we were trash until 2004. Please stop playing with us.
Oh, 4. Hold up.
So
Let me think
Jerry
about that.
West
Oh,
was
4.
our
They had
GM.
number 3. I forgot his name. Amir.
Oh, Amir Rashu. It was
I was gone by then, but we
Okay.
made the playoffs for the first time I was there 2001, 2002, 3, and 4. So we made the playoffs in 2003,
Okay.
I want to say.
Okay.
But we were a struggling team when they transitioned from the Vancouver Grizzlies to the Memphis Grizzlies. But yeah, like I was part of the transition team from a sponsorship perspective, and my job was all of our jobs, honestly, like from the players to the front office staff, was to get out into the community so that the community would accept us. Right? It's a college town. They had a professional team had popped in for a minute but didn't stay in the past, and so the community was skeptical. So the first full year was just building rapport and being out in the community. I'm sitting on porches with community leaders on a Sunday sipping lemonade and just getting to know each other and building that trust and rapport. So that was a really special time in my career. But when I left Memphis, I just moved back home and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to only live on the East Coast, and between DC and New York. And then I got a call from the person who's my boss again now, and was like, "Yo, come. Are you in New York?" And I lied. I wasn't. I was in DC, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm here. What's good?" He was like, "I have a meeting for you tomorrow." I was like, "What time?" "I'll be there." And I was like, "Oh, had to borrow money from my mother. I was like, I need to get to New York on the train. I have family here in New York, so it was easy. I always have a place to stay. Came, had a meeting, got a job offer, and then moved to New York. I then left Live Nation. That was in 2006. I left Live Nation to go because I was like, oh, the sports bug, it's still in me. And the Knicks, was paying a bag. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go see what they talking about over here. So I left for a year and a half, and then I was like, nah, I'm good.
Came back.
And I've been back. It's been a collective 17 years at Live Nation. I think it's 13 years I've been back. So yeah. I'll retire from here.
Let me ask you, because I read different articles about like the state of like people like growing in their careers, and there was a long time, and like obviously in our generation, like it was all about longevity, right? Like you were rewarded for longevity. There seems to be a complete opposite trend where they're pretty much saying that if you do that, you're losing, basically. Like, is it important at some point for people who are at a certain level? Do you need to leave to get your value?
Yes. I did it twice. 100%. Here's what I'll say. Move around. If you are not fulfilled in your work, we spend most of our working years at work with people that are not our chosen people, right? I needed to give me everything I'm giving it. So if you're not fulfilled, if you're not making the money you feel like you need to make, if you are not being challenged in way, move around. I'm different. Let me just say that. It has worked out for me because I've made it work. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't really want to be an entrepreneur because I like my healthcare benefits and my 401k match. But I have been able to carve paths for myself to make work what may not have worked. And I've also bounced a couple times and seen like, oh yeah, grass not greener. Let me go back over there where I know what I know, and I can navigate certain things. But I am an advocate for moving around. Like sometimes that's how you get promoted. Sometimes that's how you get your money. But if you're gonna stay, like I have for the most of part of my career, I've been at the same place. It has to work financially. It has to work within your lifestyle, like all of those things. So yeah,
I asked that too because in those same articles, the demographic that leaves the least are Black women. Like we're like Black women as a whole are the most loyal to that mindset of wanting to be there for longevity. But then there's also a certain level of hesitance for asking what we think that we deserve. And then it becomes some level of resentment over time. And so I just think it's important just to have those kind of open dialogues, because obviously a lot of Black women watch this podcast, and that's a big follower of Broccoli City. So it's just important to me just to get your thoughts as like a person who's obviously successful and been able to navigate through this corporate world.
Yeah, I remember when I said I was different. Like I don't want to resent the place that I work at. Right. But once it gets to that point, it's time to go. Like my time here is done.
So obviously, I mean, everybody went through COVID. George Floyd, 2020, everything shuts down. You're working in live events, right? So I know like at that time I was going through the process of trying to close my house, and they're like, oh, great. You're an entrepreneur and you do live events. Great. We love to give you a 30-year mortgage. Come this way. Right. So it was a lot going on for sure. I'm just curious, like, was there any, like, obviously you started a whole new company, but was there any concern of like, fuck, like what's about to happen to this industry? Or you were confident in those kind of thoughts? I love to get both of y'all's thoughts on that.
I was youngin', so I was, of course, concerned. I had only been at Live Nation 2 years, so of course thought that the sky was falling. But luckily, as Shavonne mentioned, we were leading the, B Nation, internal employee resource group. So knew that that was an avenue that I personally was interested in. And then I think, Shavonne, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she emailed me and was like, tell me something that you would like to do here at Live Nation. Like, just make it up. I was like, remember, I'm like 24, 25 at this time.
Right.
Like, pretty young. And I was like, hyperventilating and sweating. I think I brought it to my manager. I was like, I don't know what to do. She was like, just come up with something. So I'd kind of just brainstormed a couple of ideas. One of them was like more HR based, but still along the same vein, right? Passionate about promoting us and promoting, opportunities for us. And then the other thing the other avenue that I kind of just put pen to paper about was recognizing the disparity between the types of opportunities that I was working on the ground. I didn't see much of me anywhere or like fans that looked like me. So yeah, I was like, why don't we come up with something that helps more brands connect with us? And I remember the day I was at my mother's house because, again, COVID, so everyone was hiding. And Shavonne called me and was like, all right, great. So we have a new team now, and it's called Curated. And I was like, my head was like spinning. But that's how I got started with Curated and, never looked back.
That's dope. I remember us talking at some point, Shavonne, over this time. And I remember you mentioning the name. I don't remember the conversation, but I remember you mentioning the name Curated, not as like it was done or it was happening, but I think that was a brand that maybe the name had been in your mind. And so you said it to me and I'm like, shit, what we doing? Like, what's up? You know what I mean? And I don't know if it was already happening or you were just kind of testing it, but I remember being like, oh, what's up? Like, what we doing? And then shortly thereafter, like,
I watched a lot of documentaries, and I had watched something about art and specifically, artists of color and how art is, usually increases in value once it is released out into the world by the artist, and the artist isn't the person who is reaping the most benefit. When, a piece is sold for the fourth time for multiple millions of dollars at Sotheby's, the artist, they're not making the money. Whoever invested in the art in the first place makes that money. So I had art and that like disparity in my head, and to curate something is to look after it. So within a gallery, the curator of the art is looking after, and in my vision, I was, seeing that curator of the art is yes, looking after the art, but also hopefully looking after the artist, right? And is caring, right? And so I was like, yo, this needs to be, we are looking after the culture. And that means a lot of things. It means like, I'm not easy with y'all. Like, I'll be like, what are y'all doing with that deal? Don't do that deal. Don't undervalue your things. So it was very important when we built this thing that it have its own name. And I remember there was a little bit of, friction. It was like, oh, you don't need it to be called its own thing. And I was adamant about it. I said, absolutely. And it means something. It means something to me. So we are looking after the culture. This is serious business here.
That's crazy. So, yeah. I never took that from curated. I always thought curated meant like it's like neat or some shit. I don't know why I always thought that, but like hearing you explain that, like that makes so much sense. Wow, that's awesome. Wow.
So I mean that's like a great intro. Like, but can you break down like what is curated today?
You want to take this one, Soukee?
What is curated today?
Ooh,
that is deep. So as Shavonne mentioned,
I'm curated, by the way. You know what I mean? Which actually be a dope campaign. You know what I mean? Let me know if y'all want to do it.
Um, I mean, off the rip, like we help to take care of, you know, our Black founded properties like Broccoli City and other, you know, live events in our space. But we also build opportunities for Black fans to come together, you know, create joy, express themselves authentically, and be Black.
Now, when I hear you speak, Shavonne, I hear a lot of confidence, right, within this corporate space.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you, where would you attribute that confidence? Did that come from the sports world? Did that come from, Virginia? You know what I'm saying? Your mom? Was it a hairdresser, a lady at the church? You know what I mean? Like, who gave you kind of that, you know what I mean? That confidence that you have.
So I feel like it wasn't a choice. I didn't have a choice. I had to be, and that partly is because of my upbringing. I grew up with my grandmother raised 7 children, mostly on her own. My mother then raised me and my sister on her own. Like, I had a lot of responsibilities from a very, very young age. Again, back then you could leave your 6-year-old at home and nobody was calling Child Protective Services. I don't know, maybe shouldn't have been left home, but it's okay.
Okay.
I survived.
Yeah.
So I am confident. I think also being an athlete helped me in that. But I'm confident because I know who I am, and I know what I'm good at. I don't know how else to explain it. It's rooted in me somehow.
Sure. And then I obviously got to double back to Soukee, right? Because you have the down south of your biological on top of, you know what I mean, the wonderful woman who raised you. Where does your gall come from? You know what I mean? I've been in meetings with you. I've heard you speak very articulate when it's time to, you know what I mean, matter of fact, better yet. Where does that come from, if I may ask?
Man, it's a mix. Very similar to Shavonne. I had to be. I have 5 other siblings. I'm number 5. So, and I got older brothers, you know, so you don't know how that works. But really had to like carve my own space out very early. I'm also a creative. So of all the siblings in my family, I'm the one who went, you know, the more creative route. I've got a sibling who's a doctor and, you know, teachers and whatnot, but I just knew, to Siobhan's point, who I was. I knew I don't like to draw blood. I ain't gonna teach those kids. It's not gonna be me. I just had a vision for myself and I just felt my way kind of through it and continue to do that today.
Got it. I mean, and as you guys have built, curated, and my bad, Mark, did you have something?
No. Go ahead. I was going to talk about
I have personally seen the benefits that curated has had upon obviously young entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, especially speaking upon Marcus and myself. But in terms of, basically, I'm saying, have you guys realized or seen what you have done for young African American women within this space in the short time that Curated has been around? And how does that make you feel, to know that what you have created is actually touching lives? Our chief of staff, you know what I mean, came from the Shavonne, tree of life, you know what I mean? So we appreciate her for that. But like, what's you guys' feelings? I mean, you guys are moving with, not saying you didn't have a purpose before, but it's real purposeful work that you guys are doing. How does it make you feel, knowing that you're impacting so many lives right now?
So we've been doing this kind of work, and I think Soukee's probably the kind of person who in college was building community, and same with me and through sports. And before Curated it was through our Black employee resource group. So I think both of us have the kind of personalities that are natural leaders and also community builders. I'm also a problem solver and an empath, believe it or not, very firm and strict and clear, but I'm an empath. And so when I see somebody with a challenge that maybe I have some experience having moved through, I want to help them. So like we've been kind of a magnet for young Black women who either work here with us or we encounter somewhere, or who just reach out randomly on LinkedIn or through our alma mater network or whatever. So I think the work now, the difference now is that like we get paid to do the kind of work that we were already doing, right? Making connections. And so Marcus and B, I think Marcus, you mentioned you feel like we've been doing it way longer. We have. So before 2020, when y'all came into the mix, and we had those meetings, it was like, yo, let me make these connections. So like,
for sure,
I always wanted, it was there. It just couldn't have been our full-time jobs at the time. So we were connected, and we were like, yo, y'all need to know this one and set a meeting with this one. Now we get to do that, in collective paycheck. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's I remember that very clear of like, I want to be close to Shavonne and Soukee. Like, I remember that time of being like, this feels too hard. And like when you're in a venture and you're Black and you're a venture under a venture, you're that much further from the machine. Yeah. And like corporate is hard to navigate as an employee, but it's even more difficult to navigate as like a venture. And so it was very much like important that our relationship grew, and it grew naturally. And it honestly like really gave Brandon and I a new sense of like what our value was as a brand, because I felt like for years we probably, and I'm saying value from the perspective of like what brand should be paying us. Mm-hmm. Like we didn't understand what that true value was. Like you guys really helped us realize like, hell no, like that's right. Too low. Are you crazy? Like you tripping? Like, and I remember us just being like, I remember me and B having conversations and it being like, man, like, and like, is that too much? Like, damn, for real, we can get that. And it would be like, okay, we'll do it. And it was like, oh shit, the brand locked in. Like, okay, cool. Like, so I think it definitely was like a confidence thing that you guys instilled in us. And I was just gonna ask too, just like from like just the talk shop perspective, give like some context, because I think people get so caught into like the Live Nation and like what they see online, like Ticketmaster, and they have all these concerts, but I don't think people realize how big the media and sponsorship sales side of the business is, right? And so I think that's like something I love for you to kind of speak to, Shavonne or Soukee, like speak to just how big that part of the Live Nation machine is, because I mean, y'all are, y'all are a very, very important part of a major publicly traded company.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, what are we, a $1 billion globally revenue generator for the company. Russell Wallach leads globally all of media and sponsorship for the company. And so, there's how many, 200 plus festivals, over 110 venues. And we're not even talking about tours. So, because our division sometimes will sell a tour sponsorship, but that money is generated primarily through the sale of festival assets and venue assets and media assets that we can package together. So it's a major business. How many employees? I mean, just in the US, I think there's over 400 employees now, and still growing. Which I smile at the thought that it's still just me and Soukee running. I mean, we're probably 10 million in, we're a very small part of that $1 billion enterprise. But before we existed as Curated, that 10 million was on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a massive, massive organization, the media and sponsorship division. We are the behind the scenes people. Nobody knows who we are outside of, somebody might do a thought leadership piece or two. But that's okay. Like, we don't need to be in the front. Like, we exist so that you all can shine and thrive and continue to build. And that's where we get our gratification from.
Let me ask this, because I know to get to media and sponsorship and just in the sponsorship world, like, obviously that's not a very direct graduate path to leading you to that type of career. Can you guys give some context? Obviously you guys had your very unique past, but like, obviously you guys talked to people out of college, interns, different people in the org. Like, what is the path to get into, we won't even say just Live Nation, but to start thinking about a career in brand management, sponsorships, and that sort of world? What do you guys takes away on where that is going in the future?
Soukee, take this, because she's doing a series of interviews now for our summer intern.
Yeah, I mean, as we shared, it's not like a linear path. I actually had no idea what sponsorship was. I was never a sports girly growing up. So I didn't go to the games. I really had no idea. So when I originally heard about Live Nation, I was like, very similar to other people. Oh, ticketing, like concerts. Then when I met Shavonne, and she kind of opened my eyes to how things like festivals and these live events are coming to life through sponsorship, it really blew my mind, how much brands can lean in and, help to bring such creative experiences to life. If I were to give advice, I would say talk to everyone. I mean, follow your passion, figure out, what you really love, and let that direct you. Again, as you heard earlier, I wanted to be a publicist, like a music PR person. Never in my mind did I ever think that I would be working in media and sponsorship, or particularly with Curated, doing all things Black culture every single day, which is like such a blessing. But I got here through networking, through figuring out what felt good and what didn't feel good. And I let that, lead me.
I fucks with it. I like it. I think it's powerful. So I want to ask this real quick in terms of next steps, right? For you both, right? And I don't know if that's huge news for Curated coming up, whatever the case may be, but just, are we excited about this year, you guys? Like any big things on the horizon? Obviously, other than getting Broccoli City a lot of sponsors, we appreciate you.
Obviously that, right? That's a priority, but we are rolling out a new, it's an event that we hope to, it's kind of a test run. We hope to grow it into something bigger. That's an annual event. It's centering Black queer culture, and it's called Mother. We got, support from the all sides of the business that came together to build this thing, kind of birthed out of an idea that Soukee had years ago. So these things take years. I don't need to tell y'all, right? It takes years. And then specifically at a major company like Live Nation, there's a lot of trial and error and different people that have to co-sign it in order for anything to kind of take off and be supported financially. So we're excited about that. Soukee and I are directly going to be responsible for selling sponsorships. So we're starting with a bang this year. Obviously gonna continue to support the JV partnerships that are near and dear to us, including Broccoli City Fest, and helping to help y'all navigate and negotiate the best possible sponsorships, not just from a financial perspective and how much money they come to the table with, but, you know, going back to what it means to curate something. It's like, what brands are going to mean it and show up and be additive to the culture that Broccoli City is. You know what I mean? Y'all already have built something very special. Any brand that comes into it needs to mean it and add to that vibe and that experience. So, you know, we might say, don't take their money, but if we do that, it's definitely coming from a place of research. Here's what we know is happening in the ether with that brand and their teams and what's happening internally with their employee base. And it's a little disconnected from what they say they want to market. So, you know, we're always going to come with, here's how we would guide. We're going to give you all the information and let you, you know, so that you can make the best decisions. But yeah, we want to grow your money. We want to grow your sponsorship. We want to help, you know, develop new ideas and give you the real. I think y'all both know, you know, we keep it all the way 100 with y'all. And if it's an idea that we think is going to be successful, we'll say so. And if we think maybe not now, we'll also say so. So a lot more of that. And then, like in my dreams, there's a global opportunity. We have to figure out what it is, but it exists, and there's spaces that we aren't occupying, that we have the opportunity to test some things out and build some relationships. And so that's another area of focus for us.
I love that. I was going to ask y'all, being in the live space, we get a chance to see a lot of dope shows, a lot of performance, a lot of random experiences. Curious on both of you guys, like best concert or best live experience. Just love to get your thoughts on that special night or day. You know what I mean?
It's hard because we see a lot.
I know. I'm gonna tell you what mine was. Okay. Mine was not even a performance. It was All-Star Weekend in Atlanta at Visions nightclub. I seen Jermaine Dupri and Janet Jackson and a bunch of other celebrities in this all glass VIP. And I was in college at the time, and just the whole thing of it all was just like, oh, it was just like mind blowing me to just see this and just like, oh, the bottles popping. And I'm coming from North Carolina, so like this wasn't happening, right? So like just the whole bottle popping and just like they were coming out with bottles and like not even like buckets. It was like crates. It was just so crazy. This is like Jeezy, BMF. It was just amazing. And so for me, like that night stands out to me as like wanting to create more nights like that. And so I'm just curious on like if you guys have any like really just call out nights, because it ain't even got to be like something at Live Nation. It could have been pre whatever, but I'm just curious on like what kind of things made y'all feel good.
This is just off the top of my head. But I mean, I saw Beyonce in New Orleans, and I thought to myself, wow, life is about to change. And not change in like be drastically different. Change as in a new bar had been set.
What tour is this? Is this Homecoming? What is this?
This was her last tour. What was it? Renaissance. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But I got to see her in New Orleans. So I always find it really special to see artists in the cities that either, you know, have roots in or like have love for. So I thought that was really special. Just, we know Beyonce is always going to kill it, but really raised the bar in the way that she tapped into the queer community and said, like, I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm actually not part of this community, and brought them in to the, you know, experience, brought them on tour, you know, queer representatives were a part of every single aspect of, Renaissance. So it's probably not a great example, but it's definitely the one that comes to mind. That will always stick out in my head. And when my grandkids ask me, what's one of your top 5 shows, it's going to be that, because,
I
of
love that.
course.
That's dope.
I don't know if folks know this, but Shavonne and Soukee had the foresight to have, and Femin Forward had the foresight to have the young lady Dochi like 3 years ago, and now she is out of this world. But they
Right.
had her when it was just one DJ and her dancing on stage. So
Facts.
In her, yep. In
Damn,
her Skims, I don't think she had shoes on.
she didn't, and she hung out with us the whole rest of the night. Like, what? Who does that? She like stuck around and took photos in the Broccoli City photo booth. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have one. There's like a culmination of little moments that I think continue to happen and make me know I'm where I need to be from a career perspective. I get to do work that I would do for free, and it's little moments like, being able to produce an event like Connoisseurs of Culture. It's being able to bring people who are on the periphery of Black cultural things, being able to bring them in and give them a flavor for what we experience every single day, and just to see the delight and the like something click, and see how that helps progress conversations around how they can support even more. So like those are the moments, and it's not even what's happening on the stage. I'm hyper conscious about what's happening around what's happening on the stage. So those are the things that continue to keep me, like, give me that little spark, and make me know that, like, there's still a lot of work to be done. No matter what we read in press and how folks are moving, the makeup of this world is going to be different in 10, 20 years, and we need to be ready for it. So, yeah.
Matter of fact, that's actually a good point. As we start to just kind of close out, curious on your thoughts on like the new DEI lack of initiative, right? The kind of the turn back of the conversation. I think our situation is very unique because, if you take DEI or diversity out of what we do, you won't have any high level culture, right? So it's like, you really can't eliminate us in our world, but I'm curious behind the scenes. Obviously we know what the makeup of a lot of these companies look like and the conversations that we're having, but I'm curious, as you're thinking about Curate's role in the future, what is your thoughts on the DEI conversations?
I mean, it's just going to be called something different. It'll be semantics. There's not a good business case to go backwards. There just isn't. There is data and factual experiences that prove diversity within your corporate business is good for business. We don't sit within the DEI space. We just don't. We are Black culture curators.
Sure.
We are
revenue driving.
Yeah, it's Black culture. It's not just for Black people. Right. But what we want to do is make sure that when you're showing up within these Black cultural spaces that are centering Black culture, and you're a participant, that you're respecting it, that you're understanding it, that you are adding to it. So, the DE&I, like, it saddens me that there's so many, people who, in my mind, were in such positions of power who so readily cave to the pressure from a few really, really loud, scared, voices. It's sad, but it's not gonna stop what we do, how we move. We may be, we may call things DE and I is gonna be a thing. They probably just call it something different. Sustainability.
Right. I love
Which
that.
we know it varies. I mean, we had this conversation, like sustainability in the hood means something very different than it means in Santa Monica.
Right. No, 100%. 100%. B, what you got on your side? I don't have any more questions. I shot all my loads.
Nah, I don't have anything, man. I like I said, I didn't know a lot of these things, so I'm yet again, I'm just so happy that y'all were able to join us today. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? We truly appreciate you guys. Where can folks find out information about Curated, things you have coming up? Where can they find that? Do you guys have like an IG and things of that nature? Could you share? No, huh?
No IG, but we have Curated by Live Nation at livenation.com is our digital creds site, where there's recaps of all of the cultural events that we produce that surround the festivals like Broccoli City. There's information about each of us and also what we do for brands, for joint venture partner teams, and for our internal sales team. So yeah, Curated by Live Nation at livenation.com.
And y'all don't blow them up unless y'all got something good to say. Be respectful. Don't be ODing now. Please don't blow our people up. They got Broccoli City to sell. Don't do this now.
We appreciate y'all so much. Congratulations.
Thank you for having us. This is fun.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys so much. So bundle up, you know what I mean? And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Text Me When You Outside. Talk to you. Bye.
Peace.